Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes Podcast. We're here with Brady Haider, who's the Director of People Operations at Experlogix. Thanks, Brady. How are you?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me, Garrett.
You bet. Okay, Experlogix. What is it? What do you guys do?
Yeah, we build a sales automation tool. So it's a software that allows businesses to configure, price, and quote. So the space we're in is called CPQ. But essentially, you have your product. You want to put the configuration, configure that product so you can quote it. The idea is the quicker you can quote, the faster, the more reliable you quote, the more you're going to sell. That's kind of the main idea.
Yes, I love it because we've all been in that situation. We're thinking about some home remodels in my case, and there's a big difference between somebody that's squared away, whether they're using software
Right.
or not. They're just faster.
Right.
Like, yeah, if you paint me into a corner, I'll probably just say, let's do it. Meanwhile, you've got others that are like, oh, let me get this ready or that ready. So you guys make that process faster.
Right. Yeah. And as you talked about, like you may have a contractor come over and they say, well, I'll have to get back to you.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times you have to track them down and you have to say, well, why couldn't they have gave you the quote? It's because they don't know what their logic is. Like, so think of the company name of Experlogix or Experlogix. Let's put that into the software so I can ask you those questions like your remodel. Let's get some dimensions. Let's put that in. Let's ask you about the material that you want. If you want oak or, the color and what kind of cabinetry you want. Now I can tell you, hey, this is going to be this much money. We can start based on this material. We could start early March 3rd.
Yeah.
Like, who are you going to go with, right? The person you have to track down or the person that knew what their logic was. And so I think that's the power, is getting that ability to quote and having the options too, Garrett.
Yeah.
Now I can say, let's do the whole kitchen, because now I can quickly get a quote in 20 minutes. Or now I see the quote, hey, let's just do the cabinets and then we can, do the rest later.
Yeah.
Just gives you options. And that's what you want as a consumer. And the reliability of knowing, hey, I can trust that. I know that what I'm getting and I know that quote because we had it in the software and we know what our logic is.
Yeah. I think speed and convenience have won over, since the dawn of man. But now when attention spans are so short, if you're not convenient and fast, probably aren't going to get as much business. So cool. All right. And then you guys are located here in South Jordan, but have offices in other parts of the world as well, right?
Yeah, it's been exciting to see the growth too. And so we're in Canada, in the Montreal area. We have a document generation part of our product that even makes the quotes even that much, faster, more reliable, to have a detailed report within your quoting. We also have an office in Belgium and as well as the Netherlands, and as well as another office in Birmingham. So it's fun. It's exciting to globally, work in people operations and to unify a culture and, have common values across all the cultures.
Yeah.
Value. So,
well, you said it's fun, and that's kind of your job, right? Your title now is Director of People Operations, but a different generation might have said Director of HR, right? But I think this role is evolving into a lot more, and if done correctly, it impacts the business in a very solid way. So, for example, you guys were named one of the best companies to work for in Utah in 2021. That doesn't just happen by luck. It's probably a lot that you've done, but what are some of the main things that you and your team have implemented to win that award?
Yeah, I think that really does start with even the name, as subtle as that may be, is the people focus that we have is like, people operations. We really are people focused. And one of the things that's been great is the support of the leadership, is to really listen to our people. So you talk about exit interviews and trying to get better, but then also, hey, let's talk about the people that are here and how we can improve and do better. Like, what do the people really want? What do they value? And, it's really about the autonomy, the ability to see their contributions make a difference. there's also the wellness side of it, like the work-life balance that a lot of people talk about. So how we kind of built that too is when we started out recruiting was, what are the people asking when we ask them about questions, like for them to make a decision to come to us? And not only that, just looking at what they're interested in, trying to build that into our culture, but then also just always, just being people focused and understanding like, yeah, what is it that they're most interested in? And I think one of the things too with the best companies to work for is that there's a survey that goes out that asks about all the aspects of the people culture you could think of. It's anonymous. They really put their responses in. But just an example of that is like the support of our leadership, like our CEO said, because not everything's 100% positive all the time, right? Like
Right.
it mostly was, but there were some things we could improve on. And he said, take the top two biggest issues and have a goal this next quarter to just improve them.
Right.
Like rather than, hey, let's look at them and see if we agree with them. It's like, let's find what our people are saying. And that's your next priority,
Yeah.
whatever they said. And that support is huge. And I think that's one of the biggest success factors.
Yeah. Outside of like really outlandish things that people want, or if like somebody's just a born complainer, a good company should accommodate to a reasonable level what the folks want. Otherwise, they might not be with them tomorrow, right?
Right. It is very competitive in the recruiting space. There's a lot of demand out there, and the supply just isn't there. So there's just ways to be, creative with the recruiting too. I think it's important to have a lot of, diversity within your group, and then, you can have younger talent too that can be mentored with more experienced people. So those are avenues you can look at. We've had success recruiting at local universities, right, and bringing someone in, even helping them working around their schedule while they went to school, for example. They're getting the book knowledge as well as like the hands-on knowledge and being mentored by senior engineers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a art, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe others would say it's a science, but I think when people are involved, it's an art.
Right.
So you guys are obviously focused on your own company as it relates to people. But that's not to say there's not a bunch of other really good ideas out there, whether it's like industry trends or you get lucky and you hear of something cool happening at another company. And I assume you might, if you've got something cool that's working, you might not tell the whole world about it, right? You'll keep it a little bit of a secret. But with your role, how often are you looking for other really good ideas and examples out there in the world, or do you guys like to build your own format and process in-house?
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. I think because there's two approaches you can take is like, hey, I don't want other people to know, but also we want to be very open and transparent, and like we're always open to better ideas. So like the newest person, in fact, we're going to listen more to their onboarding experience because, hey, even though they've only been here 2 months, like they were most recently onboarded, how can we improve the onboarding and like make that even better? Like we want to have the best onboarding program that we can. And so one of the things we've tried to look at is like one of our values is the golden rule, which is like, how would I want to be treated when I'm going through an interview process? We've all had those where you're like, we don't hear back. My name just went into the database. How do we make that where it's like what people would want? Yeah. I want a human experience. I want to be contacted. I want to be notified. What are the touch points along that? And then also when I'm a new employee, what's the training that I want? Like the support. There's a lot of anxiety as you're starting your job. What is it going to be like? How's my manager really going to be? And we try to get ahead of that. Let's have several touch points before they start. Let's help them know our culture. We send out a packet of information. They can log into our portal, our HR system, and look at who their team is, see their faces, and get to know what their hobbies and interests are. Just all those things like that. And then I think just being a part of their onboarding, it's our people ops is not just we recruit and hire. We make a point to say, we're with you through your 90 days onboarding and beyond, but we want to be a partner with you, not just the people ops department does this and then the finance department does this. It's all integrated into who we are.
Yeah. I think that's evolved a lot over the years, and I think it's on hyperdrive right now because there's a lot of companies where it's here's your access card and a key, and I'll see you again when I fire you or when you quit, right?
Right.
And then there's no interaction in between. Um, but it seems like you guys are focused obviously on onboarding. That's a critical part. But then, employees that have been there 2 or 3 years, they've got friends, and they've got their own network, and they're hearing about other things that are cool in other companies. And it could be trivial, like cookies or ping pong, whatever. Or it could be like, hey, this is like helping their business thrive. How do you make sure that their feedback is incorporated?
Yeah, I think it's continuous process improvement. Having this idea that just because we've always done something a certain way doesn't mean it couldn't be done better. And like successful companies will always, and teams will be looking for ways to improve. And that's why the key with diversity can be diversity of thought and opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get all those ideas out on the table and let's really try to have the pursuit of truth. Like what's going to be the best avenue to get there? And it just starts with the culture. If it can start from the top down, I think that's huge so that people understand their ideas can be heard and we try to improve upon what we've done in the past.
Yeah. And even if the person wants a massage chair because they're always sore, right? There might be another one that wants it, and that's just $3,000, and it might keep that person from leaving, right? So I've heard of all sorts of weird things, and it's not like they're being selfish or like, it'd be cool if we could do this, and then they're still there 5 years later. That might have been a big reason for that, right? They were listened to, whether it's a big thing or a small thing.
Yeah, I think one way to look at people operations, you could actually think of it as a finance position, looking at a balance sheet, and you have your assets, your liabilities. Well, I think everyone on the surface would agree that your people are, we've heard the buzzword, your most important asset.
Mm-hmm.
And our people are so important. But then in actions, when something happens, like I need to get a new headset that's pricier than the average one, but hey, if they're using that 8 hours a day and talking to your valuable customers and it's going to make a difference, then we don't look at it as an expense or a liability. We look at it as an asset. And so that just drives your decisions. Yeah. And just having that mentality, I think really can help drive the culture.
Yeah. I mean, it's really discouraging if you're at a company and you've got a slow computer or third generation headset, whatever it is, and this isn't going to break the bank, even if the whole department gets it, and it's like, oh, budget this or budget that. Like, show some ingenuity and entrepreneurial spirit and figure out how to accommodate this, right? Like, that goes a long ways, I would imagine.
It really does. I mean, you think about like a carpenter, if you're doing construction, you don't want tools that are not top notch. I mean, they're just going to break. It's not efficient. It's similar to our industry, just with the software and the hardware. So if I'm going to, hire someone, invest in them, and now we're waiting for a virtual machine to spin up, and now every time we load that, there's 3 to 5 minutes, and then I've got to go load this for 3 to 5. Hey, let's get them the hardware they need. Let's find out what they need, get them the tools they need to be successful and to be happy.
Yeah.
And you will have a return on investment. Like you just will.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't approach it like it's an expense. You look at it as, how is this strategic to help us accomplish what we're trying to do?
Yeah.
Make a great product, have our customers happy. And in the end, if your people are happy and they're taken care of, then the customers are taken care of. And that's really what's most important.
Yeah. Yeah. We've all been on calls with what bank or whoever it is. Oh, sorry, system's loading here. Like, you're $1 billion. Tell your boss to pay the internet bill or get you a new computer. It's just weird and shocking. So you mentioned various different office locations, and you don't need to be a geopolitical expert to know that there's different cultures in those areas. You've got to factor all of that in, right? So how do you do that? Because you can't be in all places at the same time.
I think it's having the trust within your team, getting the people in the positions to succeed. If we establish the vision, we have our company values, and as long as we're living the vision and the values, then a lot of that can take care of itself. And that's part of what motivates the people. is autonomy and trust, right? That was one of our top 10 as we surveyed our people, like what's most important. And so it's really having like a centralized control at corporate to say, here's our values, here's what we're trying to strive for, and then having more of a decentralized, so it's like, hey, we don't have to micromanage. We can put people in place in these areas that know where we're trying to go, and then let them do what they do best.
Yeah.
That they know that culture a little bit more. They can recruit a whole lot better, someone that's speaking Dutch than I could. Right. And so let's have them do what they do best to help build our teams.
Got it. So you're going to trust your folks on the ground to implement kind of your strategic vision for the year or for the entire company. It's very frothy out there in the job market, and it's as hectic as I've ever seen it, with like offers and counter offers, unsolicited, and people looking over that. That's some pretty green lawn over there, right?
Right.
Probably a bit stressy for folks like you and in your role. What are you guys doing as a company, and then what are you doing to try to be on the best side of that, like keeping employees?
Right. I think it's important to just have regular touch points, regular one-on-ones, find out what's most important to them, and making sure that we have those things actually in place. So finding out career progression. A lot of times people may be looking, it's because they feel like they don't have an opportunity to grow. So we want to be clear, even at day one and then on their onboarding, is like, we want you to grow and be successful. We'll applaud that. We have plenty of opportunity. The sky's the limit, really, at our company with what the product can do. It's very technically challenging, which is rewarding for a lot of engineers because they want challenges. They want rewarding work and thinking outside of the box. So if someone wants to advance into a certain career, we want to know that and then put training and plans in place. We may say, hey, it may take a little bit of time to get there, but at least as we know that, we'd rather you grow within the company than have to look outside.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important for everyone and it may not just be moving to another, department or division. It can be growth like within your role. So how can you start out as an HR administrator and then go to an HR business manager or whatever it is, or tech support engineer and now be a senior tech support engineer. Like, let's make sure they understand what that is and help them get there, help them grow. And with the growth, it's a lot of things, but just making sure that the investments there, going back to the expenses versus the investment, and we look at it as an investment in our people.
Yeah. And it's pretty simple. It's like communicating that there's paths to different or better jobs, within the company. It's obviously still on the person to perform, but even something that simple might keep them around for several years, which I think would probably be one of your main objectives, is to have long tenured folks, because it's expensive if it's just churning, right?
It really is. With the effort you put into onboarding, the institutional knowledge that you have, learning our product as well as the other products that we may integrate with, there is a learning curve. So you're right. Like, we want people to stay. Like, the approach we want is when we hire someone, we want them here 5+ years. And our average tenure has been around that. It's bounced between 4.8 and about 5.2 in our latest report. And I think it's, just a testament to some of the things that we've tried to do and listen to our people and try to adapt and see what they're interested in and what makes them tick, and try to have that as part of our culture.
Yeah. So if done correctly, the director of people and operations should work closely with CTO, CFO, CEO, COO. And I guess if that suite of executives don't see the value in not having a high churn and all of that, then that's probably the first problem. So how do you interact with your other directors and executives of the company to make sure that you're showing an ROI and that the value of people is not forgotten?
Right. I think it's all about taking a team approach rather than say, well, you're a CFO or you're a CTO. It's more like, hey, we're we're together, we're on a team, we're Experlogix.
Yeah.
What do we need to be successful? How do we get to our goals? And so I think that's really the most important thing. And then just having that partnership with them. So it's not like, well, I hit my goal, but you didn't hit your goal. It's like, no, together we hit our goals together. So, for example, if we're trying to recruit and fill these positions, the CTO and through their team, they may give us some referrals, right? Some people that they know, and now that makes our recruiting easier. And so it's really a joint effort that way. And then also just finding out what their goals are and making sure they're part of our goals. So we're not, so whether it's the CFO has their goals, the sales team has certain goals, we need to be aware of what those are. So we're not, pushing against it for our agenda. It's like, let's help them. Like that's really the approach. Like that's the whole point of why we're here, right? Is to really service them and help them. And let's find great people to build to their teams, give them the tools they need, the onboarding and the training, and then in the end, that's, I think, where you'll see the value.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of what you're saying is like good old common sense communication, right?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
So if you get this answer wrong, it's fine. But if you had to prognosticate based on like macro and then just what you're seeing, boots on the ground, how long do you anticipate this market kind of being so frothy? And do you think there will be anything that happens like on a larger scale, not a bubble bursting,
right,
that would kind of dampen it a little bit?
I think this is the new normal almost. Okay. I think it's going to be this way for a while. There's the way that technology has exploded, and we have the infrastructure here, and just the growth that's continuing to happen, just even in the real estate market, and just people want to be here. I don't see it ending anytime soon. And so I think the key is, I think about you navigate rather than look at kind of the doom and gloom of any situation. You say, well, how do I capitalize on this? How do we get better at what we're doing in our approach? Just little tweaks that you can make along the way to be successful and strategic with it. Like I remember back, I went, one of the first like career fairs I went to recruit, I was getting all kinds of resumes, and they weren't even relevant to a lot of the roles because I didn't have my technique correct.
Yeah.
Then did some tweaks, and we clearly had, a sign there. Yes, we do have internships. What are the most questions they're asking? We had the pay range, the hourly rate. Yes, we will work with you while you go to school.
Yeah.
If you're speaking these languages, you're speaking our languages. And we had the C# and the JavaScript. And so we had a lot more tailored marketing and approach. And then we found the quality and the talent there. So I think no matter what the landscape's like, there's ways around it. You have to figure out what it takes to navigate that market and to be successful in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been fun and enlightening, and thanks for actually answering the question and not saying, well, I think maybe. It's good insight. So thank you so much, Brady, for joining us, and good luck over the next coming years. It's going to be an interesting time for folks in your position, I'd assume.
Yeah, it's exciting to see what the future holds, and lots of growth. We're on pace for more record-breaking growth. We had record-breaking growth last year, and already we're even more aggressive plans this year. So we're super excited.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Garrett.
Yep.